Mac Buckley here with the UCCS Athletic Network. Here we have Miss Coach Sian Hudson of the UCCS women's soccer team. Coach Sian Hudson, brand new. Welcome to UCCS Athletics, and how are you doing, and what brings you to Colorado Springs University?
You know, Mac, I'm very excited to be here, doing extremely well. Just been in the position here for about a week, and very excited about the potential and the prospects for the program.
And Coach, you are coming from just right down the street at Colorado College, but you have an extensive history as far as being a player and also transforming into a now renowned coach. So do you want to talk about a little bit coming from Wales, winning the Welsh Cup, those kinds of things, because you won the Welsh Cup for 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. Youngest captain, I believe, of that international team as well. I was kind of reading a little bit about your accolades, but would you like to highlight any of those as far as you growing up and anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, I grew up in Wales in the United Kingdom. Was soccer, or football as we call it, was always my passion growing up. I was a huge Manchester United fan, so I got the chance to travel to watch Manchester United play on a weekly basis. And growing up in the UK, soccer really wasn't for girls. So my team was certainly one of sort of the pioneer teams in sort of getting girls and female soccer on the map back home. So that's something to be sort of proud of as we look back on it, because I know the game has expanded and grown exponentially since I moved out here 14 years ago. So it's always great to see sort of what the game was in terms of female football back in Wales and what it is today. So that's great. Had a lot of success as a player through my club and also having the opportunity to play with my national team. But unfortunately, I suffered some pretty severe knee injuries, and my career was ended when I was 19. So that was devastating at the time, but looking back on it, I think everything happens for a reason, and it's given me a great opportunity to get into coaching full time and to be in the United States, and obviously and be here as the head coach of UCCS today.
And just kind of want to actually talk about you at Wales as far as just being a soccer player before we dive into your coaching and everything in Colorado Springs. I know you have a big history at that.
Yeah.
But so talk about you and your team as far as the women's soccer team kind of setting the pace really as far as just emerging and not really women's football, not really being so popular. Was your family behind you? To me, I played soccer a little bit when I was younger, and I think of family. I played with my two sisters and my little brother. Was soccer a family thing growing up at all that turned into the
Yeah,
family?
absolutely. I think for anybody that grows up in the UK, sport is sort of your escape, and I think the society in general is built around sports. And in Wales, actually, the national sport is rugby. But football was always sort of my family sport. My uncles, my cousins, some of them played professionally. So on the weekends, we would always go and watch them play. And I got to the point where I had a great group of friends in the local street, most of them boys, and we would play after school. I remember the first thing I would do coming in from school is run straight upstairs, take my school uniform off, put my Manchester United kit on, and run out to the local park, and only come home when it was dark or when my mom called for us to come in to eat. So I definitely spent a lot of time out in the street playing street soccer, which I think even for the players, the youth players in this country, I think is something that we could do more here. I think it helps a lot with creativity. But like I said, Eric Cantona was sort of my idol growing up. He was a Manchester United player at the time, and he was just so sophisticated on the ball. I would literally watch Manchester United on TV, record it. I'd stop. I'd run out the back garden and try one of Cantona's tricks, and then come back in and finish watching the game. But I played on a boys team up until the age of 12, and then the rules in the UK prevent you from playing with boys beyond that, or at the time it did. So I begged my mom to start a women's team, which she did. And we advertised and did tryouts, and we had players come from the whole region of South Wales to come and play on the team. And my mom sort of spearheaded that with regards to the administration and organization piece. And then we had a coach, his name was Andrew Beattie, great guy, and he coached us with the club team, and then he went on later to become our national team coach. So some tremendous memories. I mean, we were incredibly successful. How the pyramid is sort of set up in the UK is you go through the Welsh leagues, and then when you get to the top tier in Wales, you can sort of transfer over into the English pyramid. And so I think we gained promotion like 5 years in a row, transferred over to the English league, and then went into one of the highest divisions there. So won some Welsh Cups, as you mentioned. Yeah. Had the opportunity to play for my national team from the age of, I think, under 14 was the first age group, under 16, under 18, under 19. I had the opportunity to captain my country at the under 19 level, which is obviously a huge privilege and something that I'll always, look back on with huge memories, fond memories. And, a lot of those girls I still keep in contact with today. I think being an athlete and being a footballer in particular just gives you such great relationships. You build great relationships with your teammates, with your coaches, and I'm still incredibly close to all of those players and coaches even to this day.
That's great to hear. You're still even close with them, but kind of heard you mention you had an idol on the team. Was his name Cantina? Is that what?
Cantona. So Cantona. He was a French guy. I remember when Manchester United signed him. It was a controversial transfer from Leeds, and he's a French international, but I think he was very charismatic, and I think at times his temper and his attitude got him into some bad positions with the press. But a phenomenal player. And I think for anybody that sort of supported Manchester United at that time, he was definitely somebody that you would look up to and always say, that's the guy that I want to be able to play like. So.
Coach Hudson, I also just want to talk to you about your mom. Sounds like she was really an advocate for you and just right there supporting you every step of the way, starting this team up for you so you can continue soccer. How do you find this drive? Where does the mindset come in at that young age? Like, is that from your dad or anything to set that up and continue your soccer?
Yeah, I think my mom, sort of being one of the pioneers for women's football back in the UK, sort of opened my eyes to the possibilities of being involved in the game long term, as a coach or an administrator. So she... I think looking back on on what my mom did, for my team and for a lot of female soccer players across the South Wales area in general was phenomenal. She would drive the van to London with all the girls packed in there. She'd drive it back. She'd drop everybody off at their house. She'd go and wash the uniforms. She was the one that did the fundraising on a weekly basis. So she was definitely somebody that showed incredible determination to make something happen that at that time wasn't the norm. And so I look at sort of the inspiration that she was and the example that she set, and I think she gave me that mindset to go out there and sort of prove myself from a young age and be in a situation where, I set a platform, in everything that I do that shows girls in general that they can go on and achieve a career in sports in the long term if that's what they're passionate about. So, yeah, she was definitely a great inspiration and is, still is to this day.
And Coach Hudson, you played soccer for a period of time over in Wales, and then also went to college. And then, did you also play a little soccer there? Is that where the knee injuries started becoming more of a bigger issue there and when you were working on your degree?
Yeah, so I had some opportunities, some scholarship opportunities here in the United States to come out and study my undergrad here, but at the time my parents had gone through a separation, and I probably wasn't mature enough at that point, or maybe independent enough to come across to the other side of the world by myself at 18. So I declined those opportunities and went to the university, Cardiff University, which was about 10 minutes, a local university, so about 10 minutes from my house. And I studied sports coaching science with an emphasis on sports psychology. And during that time, I used the summers to come out to the United States and coach, and traveled all over the country with a company called Challenger Sports. And that was a great opportunity for me to sort of get to know the culture here. Stayed with host families, met some tremendous people who, still lifelong friends. But overall, it was a sort of a period of transition for me. I went through some serious knee injuries, which eventually ended my career at 19. And so that period was a great time for me to sort of transition from being a player into the coaching ranks. Having the opportunity to come out here 2 to 3 months every summer and get to know the culture here, sort of opened my eyes to the possibilities and the opportunities for women in the United States, especially, in soccer. So I told myself that as soon as I had my undergrad degree, I wanted to come out here full time and coach. And I think I left Wales 2 days after I graduated from university. So, and I haven't looked back. It's been a tremendous journey, and it's given me some unbelievable opportunities in life in general. Met my husband here. I have 2 kids now, and met some wonderful people and mentors, in the game. When I first moved out here, I got an opportunity to work with a local youth club here in the Springs called Pride Soccer Club, and sort of worked my way up through that club from the youth director up to the overall girls director of coaching there. And I think I was there for 13 years. And we went from sort of being state underachievers. We had a huge club and a huge sort of player base and player foundation, but we hadn't really accomplished anything. And I sort of set about putting a curriculum in place for player development. I always believe strongly in laying a great technical foundation. And then as the players would come through and we got the younger players set with the technical foundation, then sort of changed my role and went up into the high school age program and worked on sort of college placement. And I think it was fantastic for the city of Colorado Springs to see that girls soccer players could come into a club, some as early as age 4, and go all the way through the club and exit with opportunities to go on and play at the collegiate level. And then in my final 2 years at Pride, I was on a team of people that started a W League franchise, which is essentially sort of the second tier below the professional league here. So the NWSL is the professional women's league, and then the W League was one tier below that. And we had players come from all over the world, Australia, Germany, Denmark, just players, sort of a huge melting pot of different cultures. And then our captain at the time was, I think, 32 years old. She had played professionally in Sweden, and she was a great mentor for the younger players. And then we had players that were current collegiate players that were looking to sort of bridge the gap between the college game and going on to be drafted. So players from Penn State and West Virginia, and some of these great established collegiate programs here in this country. So that was a unique experience, and something I look back on as probably one of the most fulfilling experiences of my college career to date. Coaching career to date. And have players that I keep in contact with to this day. So
that's amazing just to hear about you graduating from university over in Wales, United Kingdom, 2 days later, hopping on a plane and then just moving out to the United States. So talking about a little bit about that college career before you jumped into that coaching side of things. So when you graduated from Wales with your undergrad, 2 days later, you mentioned you came over to the States right away. But you mentioned a lot of coaching experience before immediately you jumping over to the States. So you must have been familiar as far as where were you coaching at, I guess, and where did you like where you were coaching, and where did you know you wanted to move to? As far as just moving countries, to me is amazing because two different cultures at that. So just wanted to hear your perspective a little bit more.
Yeah. I actually got into coaching, I think, when I was either 15 or 16. My club and national team coach, Coach Beatty, we all called him Beatty, was a good family friend as well. So, we would sit and watch and analyze soccer for hours upon hours on a weekly basis. I think it drove my mom crazy, but he was a great mentor and somebody that sort of helped me look at the game from a different perspective. And so, like I said, when I was either 15 or 16, I got involved sort of under his tutelage as a coach in the local academy in South Wales, and the what we called the Centre of Excellence. So that was great. It gave me an opportunity to work with younger players and sort of share my experiences and sort of be a role model for them. And then after that, the summers that I came out here and coached, I think I traveled to 26, 28 different states from the age of 18 to 22 and coached all over the country, kids from the age of 4 all the way up to college age players. So that was a great experience. I think those summers taught me to be adaptable and flexible as a coach, and really sort of helped me understand the depth of coaching, the impact that you can have on kids' lives even in the space of a week. I remember leaving camps and players from all over the different areas. I think I remember in one particular moment a camp that we did in the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina, and these little mini kickers who were like 3 or 4 years of age, like hanging off my leg when I was trying to drive out of the parking lot to go off to my next camp. So I've been really fortunate in my career to work with a huge range of different talent levels, from international level players all the way down to my daughter's age team. I'm currently coaching, I think they're an under-9 team. So it's great to have the opportunity to give back to the game and share my experience and my knowledge with the younger players coming through, whether they're 7 years old or current collegiate athletes who I can sort of help and mentor in the game.
It sounds like a lot of that really enabled you and helped you to excel at the Colorado Pride Soccer Club a lot. What was your favorite aspect as far as you being there for 13 years, you growing and developing a lot, growing and developing players, seeing them mature? What's been your favorite aspect? What's the most rewarding thing? Like, what makes you get up out of bed and what makes you love what you do? You can just see already that you just have a passion of coaching.
Yeah, I think two things. I'm incredibly passionate about the sport, and I love the sport. It's something that's given me great enjoyment and so many challenges in my life and so many opportunities. So I love the game. I think I'd watch soccer every minute of every day if I could. But I think more so than that, the relationship piece. I love the relationships that you generate through the game, whether that's with your colleagues or with your players, and sort of helping, females in particular understand that if you're willing to sacrifice and you're willing to apply and work hard, that there's so many opportunities out there for you, not just within soccer, but in life in general. And I obviously come at it from a soccer perspective because that's my passion and that's my area of expertise. But I think, some examples would be, seeing players that I've coached, playing on TV with their respective national teams, or, getting a wedding invite to a player's wedding that I might have coached 10 years ago, or players that come back into town that have kids of their own now and hey coach, let's go out for dinner and catch up. So I think the relationship piece for me is probably the most motivating thing. I want to generate those relationships and be that sort of mentor and role model for young females.
Coach Hudson, I mean, talking about those mentoring and those relationships, you just finished being an assistant coach at Colorado College, still in Colorado Springs, so you stayed local for 13 plus years, and now just up the street at University of Colorado Springs. So staying local in the Springs, how has it, seeing those girls from Colorado College, seeing them develop, and now some of them are playing at the professional level, just to know that the success has paid off on many different aspects?
Yeah, I think I got to a point from a family perspective. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I loved the club game and having a huge reach on so many players. I think when I left Pride, we had about 4,500 players in our program, and even if 2,000 of them were girls, I just had this ability to impact so many kids' lives at Pride. But it got to the point where I was spending so much time with other people's children and not enough time with my own, because obviously club soccer is typically in the evenings and on weekends. So I had to refocus and ask myself, what kind of mom do I want to be outside of what soccer coach I want to be. And the opportunity at Colorado College came at a great time for me with my kids being young, and it provided an opportunity to really get to know the collegiate aspect of things, compliance, recruiting. And Jeff Bennett, who's the head coach over at CC, has been sort of a friend for a really long time, and when he called and asked if I'd like to consider that job, I jumped at it. So it was a new challenge and something that I look at as a really important stepping stone in my career. The players at CC, the girls at CC, I still keep in contact with and wish them great things for the future seasons, but in life in general. So CC was a great experience for me. It gave me the opportunity to be an assistant at a Division I level and really just learn all aspects of what it takes to be a good collegiate coach. And now obviously the opportunity here at UCCS to lead my own program and take all the knowledge and the things that I've learned both from the club game and being an assistant at the Division I level at CC and using that to benefit this program. So I'm really excited.
Hey, Coach Hudson, talking about your family, meeting your husband over here, now with 2 children, just growing up. So it sounds like you're adding a lot of family with the Pride, Colorado College, and now the University of Colorado Springs women's soccer team. What is in store this new season coming up ahead? I know this is the off season right now for you. So what's it like as far as that college experience? A little bit different than just the club experience, talking about those recruiting and those kinds of things as far as working with student athletes. What was it like for you as a student athlete, knowing that you were as well in Wales, and what are you doing to relate to your student athletes this upcoming year?
Yeah, so I look at Colorado Springs as home, and being fortunate enough to be in this beautiful state and this beautiful city for close to 15 years, both on the club side, with Pride, and then recently for the last couple of years at Colorado College, and to have the opportunity to move into a head coaching role and not have to move my family, and to be at a school that is really close to my family's heart, and a school that has a huge amount of potential and is growing exponentially is so exciting. And if I look forward to the spring season, while it's our non-competition season, I think the spring, and especially being a new coach, is a time where I can come in and lay a solid foundation and create a new culture. Create a new culture for the team and set standards and expectations, and just get to know the girls. Have them have the opportunity to get to know me without the pressure of a competition season. I think it's perfect timing. And obviously looking forward to, we start next week, so developing those relationships with the girls and helping them, obviously become better individually and better as a team, and then, obviously look into 2017 recruits and seeing, who we can attract to the program here just in the near future.
And then I'm going to ask this one more time, but as an assistant coach to now being the head coach of a team, what are some of those like different aspects that you have to do as an assistant coach versus being a head coach? And also, Miss Sian Hudson, kind of talking about as a first-year coach, you talked about creating a new atmosphere, a new environment. How do you do that as a first-year head coach? How do you get a team to buy in? How do you get the girls to buy into your program that you're trying to set in place?
Yeah, I think as with anything, you know, you have to set a vision and expectations, and you have to educate your players on what you're looking for, whether that's from a soccer perspective on the field, or whether that's from just a team environment perspective off the field, how we treat our teammates. I think there's tangible things that you can do from, you know, having expectations with regards to grades or how we train, you know, the intensity and the work ethic that we will expect at practices. The way we communicate with each other is really important. So we actually have our first team meeting tomorrow, so we'll be going through a lot of those details tomorrow. And I don't expect, I'm not naive enough to think that I'm going to come in and change the program or bring the program into sort of my way of thinking overnight. It's a process. But I've had some individual meetings with the players already, and they all seem extremely enthusiastic and motivated, and just a great group of girls.
And last question for you, Coach. So what really do you feel like is the difference between the college aspect level of game versus that club aspect? You have a lot of club players that I'm sure you worked with that might be potentially coming to a college or anything like that. What are some things that some of those younger players need to do in order to find success at this college level of soccer?
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give club players or youth players is always believe in yourself. Typically they're going to be some of the best players in their club environment, the big fish in the small pond sort of analogy, and then they're going to go into an environment at college where it's, everybody's talented and everybody's working hard. And I think for some players the transition to college is much more difficult mentally than it is physically. I think everybody has the talent to go into college and do well. Now obviously there's a lot more expectation in terms of strength and conditioning and, just the professional aspect that you have where you're doing a lot more meetings and video breakdown and strength and conditioning. But I think as you transition from the club game into the college game, I think the biggest difficulty for a lot of players is the mental piece. Do they have that self-belief where they can go there and know that they're talented enough to be there and be able to go in right away and impact as a freshman. When I was on the club side, we had a lot of players, obviously, that would transfer, and I think a lot of the reasons for that came about as a result of self-doubt, where they didn't feel like they could go in and truly contribute, and then as a result of that, the coaches never got to see the best of them, and then they looked to transfer. So I think the biggest thing is understand that it's going to be a jump and it's going to be a transition. But that you got recruited for a reason, and believe in yourself and go there with sort of a presence and an attitude of I want to prove myself as opposed to I've arrived. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would give club players.
And Coach Hudson, before we conclude our interview from Coach's Corner, is there anything that you'd like to add as far as your career, whether being a player or a coach, anything that you'd like to add that maybe we necessarily didn't get to touch on yet?
I think from a career perspective, I would say that I've had a lot of obstacles that I've had to overcome in my career, and I know as you sort of look to youth players or to collegiate players, whether it's injuries, whether it's personal circumstances, whether it's difficulties with academics, I think my biggest piece of advice for players would be to, look at obstacles that you face and you have to overcome as sort of a part of your journey and what makes you into the person that you are. But be determined and be driven, and know that if you're willing to work hard enough and you're willing to put yourself out there, that great things can happen. And as I look at UCCS here and our program, we didn't have the greatest year last year. I think anybody that wants to look, at our results would know that. But as I look at the expansion of the school and the campus and the location and everything that we have from an academic perspective, I think the future's bright here, and I think that players need to look at this program and understand that I'm going to come in and we're going to create an exciting program here, and something that I think not only UCCS but Colorado Springs in general, we want to draw fans from the local community, and we want to make this program something that the city in general can be proud of, and that players from across the country flock to UCCS camps because they want to be a part of this and what this program is here.
Well, there you have it from head coach of the women's soccer team, Miss Sian Hudson. Mac Buckley here with the UCCS Athletic Network from the Coach's Corner. Thank you so much, Sian Hudson, for your time, and look forward to seeing you on the field soon.
Thank you.